The first time I saw my son's limp body sprawled across our driveway, his ribs crushed, his arm twisted at an angle no arm should ever bend, I thought the world had ended. I thought a wildfire, an earthquake, something unstoppable from nature had struck us. But no, it was worse. The people who did this weren't strangers, weren't robbers, weren't even police. They were my own neighbors, fake HOA cops, men who decided a child-breaking community rules was enough reason to turn into a private militia. And when I realized that the very HOA board entrusted to keep us safe had funded, armed, and unleashed these thugs, I swore I wouldn't stop until every last one of them saw prison bars. Stay tuned, because this story doesn't just end with justice. It ends with an entire HOA empire collapsing under the weight of its own corruption. It was supposed to be a normal evening. The California summer was dry but not unbearable, the kind where the sky turns purple at dusk and the air feels heavy with the smell of dust and honeysuckle. My wife had gone to visit her sister, leaving me and my 10-year-old son Lucas to enjoy a father-son evening. We had just finished a game of catch in the yard, and I'd promised him some homemade lemonade. I stepped inside for only a moment. I remember pouring the sugar into the pitcher, hearing the hum of the refrigerator, thinking about how quiet the street was. But then I heard it. The slam of a car door, the sharp bark of a voice, guttural, commanding. Lucas's scream. The glass pitcher slipped from my hand, shattering across the kitchen floor. My heart stopped, then jolted into overdrive as I sprinted back outside. What I saw under the glow of the porch light will never leave me. 3 men in dark navy polos stamped with Cedar Ridge HOA Patrol. Their faces were shadowed under federal-style baseball caps. They weren't laborers I recognized. They weren't cops. They looked like mercenaries. And they had my son surrounded. Lucas was backed against the decorative pavers we'd just laid last month, his baseball glove still on one hand, his eyes wide with terror. "Stay back," I shouted, rushing forward. But before I could reach him, the tallest thug, a stocky man with a gravelly voice, grabbed Lucas by the collar and yanked him upright. The second man swung a telescoping baton straight into Lucas's chest. The sound, the snap of cartilage, the choking gasp that escaped my boy's lips tore through me. "No!" I screamed. Lucas crumpled, wheezing, clutching his ribs. The third man grabbed his arm and slammed it down against the curb. The crack echoed in the night, like a dry branch snapping in the woods. Lucas screamed, his voice breaking into sobs. "Community standards aren't optional," the ringleader growled. His badge gleamed in the beam of my flashlight, but up close, it looked like cheap costume jewelry. I lunged at them. "Let him go! He's a child!" One of them shoved me back with the butt of their baton. Pain exploded across my ribs, but I barely felt it. I saw only my son, broken and bleeding on the ground. The men started dragging Lucas toward a dark, unmarked van parked at the curb. Rage and desperation surged through me. I grabbed at the leader's shirt and ripped the badge clean off. The fabric tore, exposing the sticker underneath. Not an official emblem, just a $12.99 online decal. The leader cursed, and all 3 men scrambled back, shoving Lucas to the pavement before piling into the van. The tires squealed as they sped down Cedar Ridge Lane, disappearing into the dark. I fell to my knees beside Lucas. His wrist dangled unnaturally. His ribs heaved with shallow, painful breaths. His shirt was soaked in blood. "Stay with me, buddy. Stay with me." My hands shook as I dialed 911. By the time paramedics arrived, Lucas had gone limp in my arms. And that was the moment I realized. Our quiet cul-de-sac had become a battlefield. And the enemy wasn't strangers. It was our own HOA. The ride in the ambulance was a blur of sirens, red lights flashing through the windows, paramedics shouting numbers I couldn't understand. Lucas lay strapped to a gurney, oxygen mask pressed to his face. I held his hand the whole way, whispering, "You're strong, son. You're stronger than them." At the hospital, doctors rushed him into surgery. I sat in the waiting room for hours, my shirt still soaked with his blood, my hands raw from gripping the armrests. Every second felt like a year. Finally, Dr. Klein came out, her face pale. "Your son has sustained multiple fractures," she said gently. 3 broken ribs, a fractured radius, and a shattered ulna. We've stabilized him, but his recovery will be long and painful. I closed my eyes. Each word was a knife. Broken ribs, fractured radius, shattered ulna. That night, I sat by his bedside, watching the rise and fall of his chest. Tubes and wires snaked around him. Machines beeped steadily. I thought about the men who did this, about the HOA that thought they could play police, and I swore they would not get away with it. The next morning, Detective Miguel Marquez from the county sheriff's office came to see me. He was sharp, calm, and for once, he treated the case with the seriousness it deserved. "Impersonating an officer is a felony," he said, flipping through his notebook. "Penal Code 538D. Assault with a deadly weapon? Penal Code 245A(1). We're talking potential life sentences here. But I need proof." Proof. That became my mission. Back home, I dug through every HOA document I had, our CC&Rs, the bylaws, the Davis-Sterling Act provisions. I found Article 7. All enforcement must begin with a written violation notice, a 30-day cure period, and a homeowner vote of 67%. There was no midnight patrol, no authorization for armed thugs. My attorney, Victoria Lang, tough, relentless, and with more courtroom wins than I could count, subpoenaed the HOA's records. What we uncovered blew the case wide open. 3 resolutions, backdated to February 29, an impossible date, each signed by the HOA president, Malene Cross, and treasurer, Hugo Sinclair. They claimed emergency powers to hire private patrols. Every signature was forged, every resolution a sham. Meanwhile, Detective Miguel Marquez traced the van's plates to a storage unit under Cedar Ridge Properties, LLC, owned by Malene's brother, Trevor Cross. Inside, the Navy polos, batons, counterfeit badges, the smoking gun. Within 72 hours, warrants were issued. Malene, Hugo, and Trevor were arrested. The trial was brutal. On one side, the HOA. Smug, confident, Malene sat coiffed and unrepentant. Hugo sweated billets, and Trevor glared at me like he still wanted revenge. On the other, me, Lucas, now in a cast, his ribs still healing, and the truth. Deputy District Attorney Alvarez presented the case with surgical precision. Surveillance footage, forensic matches between baton tips and Lucas's injuries, the fake resolutions, the forged signatures. Community safety, the defense argued, emergency measures. But the law was clear. You don't break a child's bones in the name of lawn care and mailbox uniformity. The jury saw it too. After 3 hours, they returned guilty on all counts. The judge's voice thundered in the courtroom. No HOA, no board member, no private citizen has the right to masquerade as law enforcement and brutalize a child. Sentences: 15 years for Malene Cross, 10 years for Hugo Sinclair, 8 years for Trevor Cross, effective immediately. The gavel fell. Justice. The Cedar Ridge HOA board was dissolved, replaced by a court-appointed trustee. Every shady resolution, every misuse of funds dragged into the light. Neighbors who once turned away now offered apologies, casseroles, support. Lucas, he's healing. Slowly. His arm is still in a cast, his ribs tender, but his spirit unbroken. One night, As we watched the sunset, he asked me, "Dad, why did they hurt me?" I swallowed hard, because they thought power made them untouchable, but it didn't. The law is stronger. And I knew then that our story wasn't just about one HOA gone rogue. It was about a truth bigger than any cul-de-sac. Real community isn't enforced by fear. It's protected by justice.